Hey, welcome back to the Mobility Project. Special guest, Erin Cafaro, rowing superstar. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is kind of solving the issue of compression. And when we're talking about compression, when Erin's kind of the full catch, you know, on the boat, this is where she'd be putting the oar into the water. Kind of good rowing technique here is you see that Erin's got a nice relaxed position. She's slightly broken. Just setting the shoulder into extra rotation that sets that shoulder tight. But what we're looking at is that she can keep a flat back at full compression without having to make a compromise and lose a bunch of torque. Because at this point then she's lost a little bit of torque and lost kind of effectiveness of her jump. At kind of the full compression where she's at full slide, that shin should be pretty vertical, right? And one of the things that we want to do is give her the option about arriving into that kind of piece where she has to generate the most force, the blade has just gone in the water, where she can be off her toes and get her heel down early. And so one of the things that one of the kind of mechanisms or things that mucks up this full compression position is ankle flexibility. The other issue is that when her hip runs into her femur here at full compression, she starts to lose kind of the integration and length of her spine and the leverage of her mechanics. And you can do this test for yourself, is that if you sit forward and notice that as you lean forward, if you start to run into your hip early, you're not going to be able to go any further. What ends up happening is that psoas takes over, and so you close the distance, but you've lost the relationship of spine and pelvis translating forward on basically what is a stable femur. So one of the things we want to try to do is improve this position for Erin, and we're going to do it a couple ways. We're going to give you a couple examples. 3 things we're going to focus on. 1, for the ankle. 2, setting that hip back in the socket using a band to improve that position. And 3, a little bit of maybe a kind of a proximal hamstring tweak, a neuromuscular piece. We'll really hit the top. So that's what's going. Cues about fixing compression on the erg. So I'm going to have Erin jump off. And the first thing we're going to do is have her work on her position of her hip. So let's go ahead and hook that into your hip and have it distracted laterally. Let's choose one of the hips. And then kind of put a knee over here. So that the band's going to be pulling you laterally. So let's switch around so you're facing Juliet. And then just kind of get as much weight on as you can this way. A little bit of distraction, that hip a little bit further. So now the first piece is, we call this the Capstan Stretch. Erin's going to try to drive as much weight through her femur as she can to poke the butt, or let that femur head kind of come out the back. That's called approximation. And in this position, she's resetting that joint. And now what's going to happen is she's going to improve the roll, slide, and glide of that mechanics so she doesn't impinge as early and reverse her tilt of her pelvis, and it increases the mechanical advantage of her hamstring. So what you can do here is just press down. We can wind the capsule up in external rotation, but I want to make sure that Erin is actually a little bit more straight in this situation, because that's the piece. We're not squatting, we're basically doing a very, very stiff-legged good morning with compression. So she keeps driving, and her image should be that weight is popping out here. And then in that position, she can then oscillate back and forth. She can hang out. As soon as she finds a resistance piece, she can hang out. 2 minutes is that minimum therapeutic dose to be able to get in there. You feel that? Mm-hmm. Okay? So one idea is that we're distracting that hip to create some space in the lateral part of the capsule to improve the mechanics. The second piece that Erin can do here is go ahead and do a 180, or face me, do 90 degrees, and go a little bit more tension so that hip is being pulled further into the back of the socket with the band. Remember, the band is what's allowing this hip capsule to change. So now she's in this position. You can kick this leg back onto the mat. Same thing. Except now we're encouraging that hip to fold at this crease, improving the mechanics so that Erin basically impinges much later. The reaction or the interaction between femur and pelvis happens at a much later point. She can find out where she's tight. That band distracts, and then she can obviously add even more tension on the band by moving away if she needs that. But what's happening is now she's biasing this hip capsule in this position, and then she can press that over to me a little bit to the side. Great. And then some things that she can do is obviously work on internal rotation. Go ahead and press into that corner now. Press this over to me. Changing the angle of the foot might also change her experience. This would be a weakened, less strong position for her at full compression. This is where she's going to really run into that position. So she's been doing this for at least 2 minutes. Let's just flip down your back real quick, Erin. Let's see if we made a change in kind of how that hip runs. We should expect a change. Erin's cold, but if I just pull this knee to chest, let me have this knee. Is this the one we did?
No, the other one.
This is okay. So Erin runs right about here as we start to feel resistance. And on the other side, and that's the same resistance. So we've been able to improve without challenging her hip, her back position, kind of her options at full compression. So that's one idea. The second idea is kind of less capsular. Go ahead and put this right in that hip crease there. Okay? And then remember, because rowing, load ordering, you have to load the hip and then basically apply the tension at the knee. It's like a deadlift, and in that when we load the hip and hamstring first, what Erin's going to do here is basically a rowing stretch. So she's going to pull her knee to her chest and then apply the tension at the kind of the leg. And what happens is we load more here than we do here. If we keep the leg straight, we load behind the knee first, but we're going to load here and then apply the tension. Go ahead and grab your own ankle, and then she can contract, relax here. But because the band here, so 5 seconds on, big tension, release. Now she goes 10 seconds, and now because the band is pulling, we get a much better effect of stretching and mobilizing where she is strongest at that hamstring butt interface, right? Okay, so 2-minute cycle, 5 seconds on, 10 seconds off. It's a 15-second mini cycle. As long, keep mobilizing, change. Every time she comes off tension, she goes into more flexion, and then more tensioning, and then she contracts. Tight, release, more, winding up, big mobilization. If your foot goes numb, stop, okay? Last idea for Erin is to do the super calf, which is ironic because her nickname is E-calf. So maybe we'll just call this the E-calf. Go ahead and stick this in your ankle here. Good, and then try to get your foot up on the ball. There you go, heel down. There it is. And so now, we've got that foot up on the ball. We're working on keeping her knee straight, so try to go ahead and get knee up there. You can block, and I'll help you block. Good, and then go ahead and just stretch that calf out. Try to compress down. That's one way. Now she's biasing that distal heel cord. Because the band is pulling back, we're changing the kinematics, the movement of the joint. Then the second thing is leg stay straight, butts to squeeze, and then she comes forward on top of that. And now we're mobilizing more of that posterior leg high up behind the knee because that's what got loaded first. 3 ideas. 4 ideas. You know, how do you make the best athletes in the world better? That is the question. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks, Ika.